Off topic, but question. A butt question. Do you think some men, can you just, if we're going to do off topic, can you ask me like about Warhammer 40,000 or guitar, like, oh, look, Rollo, it's the guitar you put together and made yourself. Tell me about that. No, we're going to say, do you think some men who became transformers, why? I need that little sound bite. And then every time I want to say the word, I can just go, why? Whatever that, when like transforms from the car into the robot. Somebody send me that sound drop and I will put that in there. That'll be the universal indicator for what. Do that because they believe life is easier as a lady than a man in society. Ooh, okay. Not wanting the burden of being a man, I guess. All right. Well, funny you should say. Gosh, that's actually not off. That's actually not off topic. Especially with part of the show we're going to get into here. Okay, I'll give you I can't give you the short version, but I can't give you the super long version either. The medium version is because okay, let's go all the way back. Let's go back to 1970, right after the sexual revolution. And we have systematically so we're beginning to demonize masculinity, traditional, conventional masculinity, to the point where we're saying, okay, remember what I told you about how like during that era of like the third wave feminists and everything else, how it wasn't just about getting the little ladies into the workforce or giving them bank accounts or everything. It was a social change. Part of that social change was that we were going to make women's experience, the female experience, the correct one, the normative one, the operational experience. So even today, and we're going to talk about this a little later, when you see the classroom settings with Johnny Cole and David Reese, teachers at Oberlin, Ohio high school. Yeah, high school. When you see that section in here, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Is we have made the female experience of life, of just experiencing everything, the correct way to do it. Now, remember when I always tell you guys about how men and women process emotions differently? It's because we have different hardware. My brain is not wired the same as my wife's brain. Okay. Your brain is not wired the same way as your sister's brain or that hot girl on the foam cannon party you want to get with, right? That men and women are different. We are functionally, architecturally, structurally different from each other. Are we the same species? Yes, but we're more different than we are alike. And that happens biologically at the cellular level while we're still in the womb. And I have, you want to talk about, remember what I was saying, we have access to information. I have dozens of examples and dozens of studies that corroborate that. And I don't think it's like, I can show them to you if you'd like. I can go dig those up right now. I still have that. I can go into my Scrivener and dig up those links if you'd like. In fact, I might even do that later on because I want to show that the reason why we're having this conflict between empiricism and emotionalism is because our brains are functionally different. Men tend to be interested in things, and women tend to be interested in people. Women tend to prioritize emotion before reason, and men innately prioritize reason before emotion. And there's nothing fucking wrong with that. But in a gynocentric social order, remember what gynocentrism is? It is 100% authority for females and 0% responsibility for females. When you're in that situation and you are not female, the most perfected form of a human male is for him to be more like a female. So that's why in the 70s, you got these pushes to talk about like macho. It wasn't like alpha males back then. It was like, you're a macho guy. Gosh, why do you have to be so macho? Right? Like as if they're trying to shame you for being conventionally masculine. Right? And so that took root right around late 60s, early 70s. Right. And it went from there. And so what happened is the more men moved away, they thought, because remember, this is the baby boom generation. And later on, it became my generation, the Gen X. Men thought that I don't want to be a macho guy. I want to be a guy who's sensitive and in touch with my feelings. Later on, we call it metrosexual, and now we're calling it something else, right? But back then it was like, I don't want to be a macho guy. I want to form and mold my personality and my ego and who I am to be more attractive to women because I want to fuck and because now we can fuck without having to worry about pregnancy because we have the pill, right? So what is it that the little ladies want? Let's ask them what they want. Well, first of all, women don't know what they want. But the second is that women will prioritize emotion before reason. And so if you're going to base your estimates of how you are going to, like the process, or you're going to base the criteria for how you're going to mold your personality into something that is more appropriate, something is more attractive to women, you're going to listen, because men are deductive. We're rational. We're rational, deductive problem solvers. I want sex. So what am I going to do? I'm going to ask the woman, what is it that I have to do to get pussy, right? Oh, you have to do this and be kind and don't be a macho guy and blah, 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 and all this other shit, right? I go and I create that in myself and I become what that woman wants me to be. And in that process, what do? I feminize myself. Because in a gynocentric social order, where the female experience is the only correct experience, it's better. At least this is the logic. I'm not saying it is, but this is the logic. The logic follows that it would be better for a man to identify with his feminine side, with his emotions, with his expressing himself, crying on demand, right? Oh, it's okay to cry. Boys don't cry. But who told you boys don't cry? Like they're all like being led around by, these military drill sergeants or these really bad football coaches to, what are you doing, Junior? You don't cry. Nobody's doing that anymore. We haven't done that since the mid 70s. In fact, we've crushed that out of our, but you want to know why men today are confused about their masculinity and their masculinity in general? They're either confused by it because it's been sort of obfuscated from them, or it's been sort of, it's been confused, right? Or else it's demonized. It's toxic. It's gender self-loathing is what I've called it in the past. It's boys who are like, I don't want to be a boy because when girls don't like boys, they like girls. So I'm going to make myself more like a girl. And so to answer your question, what is the logical extreme of wanting of a man or boy or whatever, wanting to identify with his feminine side, to actually become female physically? Take hormone blocking drugs, have the surgery, get your balls removed, whatever it is that you got to do. I don't know, whatever it is. And when you have a mother who is on board with that madness, that all that does is compound and exacerbate that problem. And really what it comes down to is, again, emotionalism versus empiricism once more, because women prioritize emotion before reason. Men prioritize reason before emotion. That's not to say that there aren't emotional guys. There are. Emotion is part of the human experience. Rationality and reason should be part of the human experience. But the way that we prioritize is the guiding principle of how we ought to live our lives is based on feels before reals. How did that fucking happen? When did that phrase come up? I'll tell you when it came up. It came up right around the mid 70s. And it wasn't probably those actual words, but that's when that sentiment started to take root. And we saw it in Disney movies, and we saw it sort of supplanting and replacing shit from the 80s to the 90s to the early 2000s on our popular media, our popular culture, our music, in our religions, things like that. And so to be more feminine and to be more female, to identify with the female. And I want to also point out that this went hand. You want to know why I have such a problem with Jungian psychology is because people say, well, Rollo, you don't know anything about Jungian psychology. I know enough to know that it's been, at the very least, has been bastardized by feminist and female primary gynocentric influences to make people think that we all have a female side and a male side. That's a theory. That's a hypothesis that was created by Carl Jung in the 40s, man, or the 30s, something like that. Like Carl Jung did not have access to the same, even a fraction of the data that I have access to right now, that you have access to right now, the average lay person has access to right now. Those were hypotheses. Those were, I think this is the way it is. And we locked onto it and we standardized it and we made it seem as if it's a law. It's a religion. You look at like Carl Jung, he's a messiah. He's like Jesus Christ. And that's really one of the reasons I think God Sada has such a problem with it. Like God Sada is, but this one thing we both really agree on is Jung had some contributions, not saying he didn't, but it's time to move on. We've plotted the human genome since then. We have fMRI scans. We know what the synapses look like between men and women's brains. We also know that men process emotions and women process emotions much differently, particularly negative emotions. So why on earth are we still clinging to this old ideal of anima and animus? Why are we still clinging to this old ideal of, oh, you have a feminine side and a masculine side? I took issue with that with Destiny. Destiny's like, oh, a perfect person should be like, if it's a man, he should just have a little bit more masculinity than femininity, and if it's a woman, she should have just a little bit more, right? Well, ideally, wouldn't it be both? And then what happens when your masculine energy and your feminine energy are both, at parity? You're androgynous. As above, so below, right? You have a tit here and you have a pack here, right? You don't know what you have downstairs. You're a thing. You're an autonomous thing. You're sexless. And I was going to say androgyny leads only to stagnation. That's death is what that is, because it means you can't adapt. That's why we're a sexually dimorphic species. Men are men and women are women. We are different. The more we embrace that and the more we understand that, the better off we're going to end up being. I was talking with Mike this the other day, or just yesterday. I was talking about how in the most gender equal societies, like Scandinavian countries, Finland, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, I guess too, all Viking territory, that in those societies where as close to gender parity as we can get, men and women tend to gravitate towards conventionally masculine and feminine roles when it comes to work and it comes to division of labor, whatever else it is. Oddly enough, given the freedom to do whatever the fuck we want, we tend to default to those gender norms. Why is that? Because perhaps we were hard coded that way. Perhaps evolution knew what the fuck it was doing, or God, or whatever you want to say. Well, nature took its course. Why is that surprising? And is that bad or is that good? Because a lot of people say, well, that's bad. Men should be able to be stay-at-home dads, and they should be able to be nurses, and they should be able to be librarians, and whatever the fuck, And women should be able to be policemen and I don't know, longshoremen. No, they shouldn't. There's specific skill sets there, and men have proclivities for those, and women have proclivities for others, right? I'm not saying women shouldn't work. I'm just saying don't make them police officers. It's dangerous. Don't make them firefighters. It's dangerous. Can't knock down doors. I mean, I've seen the videos. For average men, you just have enough upper body strength to knock down a door. Women can't do it. And you need a guy, hey, can you help me out here? Shit, I saw this. Somebody sent me this. It was I want to say it was in Korea or something like that. Anyways, there's this ceremony and they're supposed to fire this cannon. And there was a man on one side of the cannon and a woman on the other side. They're both soldiers, right? And the female soldier is supposed to pull the chain to fire the cannon. And she can't pull the chain hard enough to close the breech or to snap whatever the firing pin is or something like that in a cannon. The guy has to come around, pull the thing and boom, and then pull, and then he does it in one try, and she's done it like probably 20 times. That's the differences right there. That's empiricism versus emotionalism. It feels like the girl should be able to pull the chain. Can't we make the chain lighter for her? Like, can't we change the rules of the cannon game so the girls can play too? No, we fucking can't. Because the cannon is the cannon, and it shoots because you pull it with enough force to do it. And if the woman doesn't have the force to do it, the man is there to do it too. So stop pretending that men and women can do exactly the same things. And I'm not saying men are really suited for everything that women are. There's differences. We're functional. We've evolved to be complements to one another. So there's certain things that women are better at communication. Women are better at emotion. I'm not saying emotion's bad. It's just like it's just a lousy way to design your life and live your life around it. But follow your heart, follow your emotions. It'll never fail you. No, it will. But to answer your question here, The short version of that is, and I'm just saying this in terms of like men wanting to become women rather than the Elliot Page, Ellen Page situation, is the ideal is that the other sex is the better one to be. And that's why I don't know the stats on this. I really need to get statistics for this. I'm sure they exist, but like, are there more male to female transitioners, or are there more female to male transition? Because I think going from male to female is much easier, because like remember we talk about like trans sports, transgender men, biological men consistently outperform women in women's division sports because they're men. There's a reason why we have those separations, because it's not fair. The nature of the game is the nature of the game, the rules of the game are set so women can compete with other women. For men, it's so men can compete with other men. You know, I was going to say, I think it was Mike was telling me, like the NFL, well, maybe the NBA too, but the NFL doesn't have a rule that says women can't play. It's just women don't play because they'd get killed. I think there's been one place kicker where she tried to be a place kicker, and that was it. It was just sort of a novelty thing. Or we'll have female referees. That didn't last very long. I think we had one or two female referees, like for NFL, like for American football americano, not the other kind of football. But yeah, because they're just not suited for it. There are certain positions and careers and functions and things that women are just simply don't have the natural, innate, evolved proclivities for. Can we just accept that? No, we can't, because we want to play this game that emotions are based on should. Women should be able to do these things. They should be able to transition to being a man. I don't know how that works, but how does that work anyways? But how do you go for, it's the Ellen Page paradox. It's like, how does that work? I mean, I guess you cut off your boobs, but like, other than that, like, what do you attach something else? I don't, who's the donor? Anyways,